I'm going to call the meeting to order. Pledge allegiance
To the flag
to
of
the
the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call. Mr. Fairstowe's not here. Mr. Penrod.
Present.
Mr. Orr.
Present.
Mrs. Tobias.
Present.
Mr. Raymer.
Present.
Mr. Esposette.
Present.
Mr. Hensley.
Present.
6. We have 6 here, so we have a quorum. Reorganization meeting tonight. So first thing is election of officers. Do I have any?
I have a
Nomination.
motion to make it the same.
We have a nomination to keep officers as they currently are.
I will
Second?
second that nomination.
Okay, we have a second nomination. So we have a nomination from Mr. Tobias, second from Mr. Penrod. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, it's all yours, Mr. Hensley.
Thank you. Any additions, deletions this
No,
evening?
no additions or deletions.
Awesome. Hearing from patrons. All right, we'll talk to you guys later, huh? Brady, anything tonight? Okay. Thank you. Considerations for appointments, we've kind of knocked that off.
Yep.
Organization of
Well,
board
you got,
finance.
you need to go through all the appointments and approve them.
Oh,
So we have
Read 'em all.
Corporation Treasurer, Darla Kane, Corporation Comptroller, Shelley Leifer, Corporation Attorney, Tim Shelley with Warwick and Boyne, Legislative Liaison, Mr. Penrod, Heartland Career Center, Mr. Orr, North Manchester Redevelopment Commission member is Mr. Raymer, and North Manchester Park and Rec Committee is currently Mr. Esposette, Title IX Coordinator, Mr. Tyson Silvius. Do I have a recommendation?
Make a motion to approve those names as presented.
second.
Okay, then you can take it and take the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
6-0.
Okay.
Board of Finance.
Board of Finance, the board serves as the Board of Finance. Traditionally, usually the board has served as the Board of Finance with the current officers retaining those same positions on the Board of Finance. So President, Vice President, Secretary.
Motion. Mr. Raymer, a second. Mr. Orr, all in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Establishment of designated newspaper.
Yep, new designated newspaper, the Wabash County News Journal, which is the merger of the News Journal and the paper as Manchester Community Schools' official newspaper.
So moved.
Mr. Raymer, second. Mr. Penrod, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What is the cost of that paper? Anyone know?
$1 a week,
Is that just $1?
at least it was. I don't know anymore.
Consideration of board members' compensation.
The current compensation is $2,000 and $50 per meeting. Whether that's an extra meeting, your current meeting you're sitting in, regular school board meeting, emergency meeting, exec session, et cetera.
Recommend we leave it the same.
Mr. Raymer makes a motion to leave the compensation as is.
Second.
Second. Ms. Tobias, any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Recognitions, we've got some things there, but financial report, Dr. Stevens.
Good evening. We'll be doing 2 sets this evening. One will be for end of month in December. The other will be for year-end wrap-up for January through December of 25. So we'll start with the education fund December of 25. And as you go down, again, all the numbers are the same as you've seen in the past. As I warned you before, December is usually not a great month as we close out our books. So if you look at the revenue, we're down 13,000. Total expenses, we're about 11,000 over what we expected. So when you get all said and done, and you look at your monthly balance, we projected having a balance of $2,083,000. We ended up at $2,059,000, a variance of $24,000. For the operation fund, this number is going to look a little odd because in December we had our tax draw, and we also had our bond bank repayment for the loan that we took out in January of 25. So these numbers are a little skewed. When you come down, again, when you look at the total revenue, $805,000, total expenses of $936,000, so we're short $131,000. When you look at our revenue side, we were projecting $550,000. Our actual is $135,000. That $135,000 includes the money that we ended up paying to the bond bank. So that's why that number is exaggerated. And that's the 805. Total monthly expenses, negative $936. So when you finish the month, we are negative $131,339. As I told you in a mailing I sent out, we are short in our levy distribution for operations by about $180,000 and about $50,000 short in operations. I'm sorry, in debt from our anticipated collections. So I hope that gets made up in 26. That's normally because of folks who did not pay or did not pay 100% of the property taxes. So we'll see.
So, Dr. Stevens, is there any way we track that? Do we know that for a fact, or is that just a projection or
That's just projections
supposition on your
from
part?
years of history, and I can tell you that there's no other revenue sources that come in from your levy. It is simply property taxes. So if folks don't pay their taxes, then all the taxing units that they are a part of don't get the revenue. So if I'm late, then I get a 10% charge on top of the taxes because of late fees. Now, we don't get that, we just
don't
get what
get
they
that.
owe. Yep.
We should get that.
We should. Now, worst case scenario, I don't pay my taxes, and eventually that property goes up for sheriff's sale.
Correct.
Whatever the percentages that they owe to local schools, then we will get that share of that. But that may be 2 years down the road before you see any of it.
Well, this is a significant shortfall. And do you have any basis for comparison for years prior to this?
Oh, yeah, we compare all that. So usually you run 99 to 101% of collections. So this is, I mean, it's $180,000, but when you look at the $2.5 million that we were going to collect, percentage is pretty low. So it's less than 1% of shortfall.
Sure. Okay.
So, oh yeah, trust me, we track
Yeah, you
all
got
that.
this. Good.
That's
All
county government function, right?
Well, it's county government to disperse and to bill, but it's not the county's responsibility to go out and collect until it's so late that they start charging folks. And again, you end up, the worst case scenario is it ends up in the sheriff's sale for tax, unpaid taxes.
But that's where those funds are coming to us, right, the county?
All right, so let's go to year end, and this looks a little different because again, we compare this to the start of the year in January of 25 and then track it through December of 25. So if you look at our cash flow, we projected in education fund receiving $11,134,000. We actually received $11,182,000, so plus 48 from what we expected. So that's more collections. Again, when we do our projections, we do not include a lot of excess revenue. So we don't include miscellaneous revenue. We don't include interest, all those sort of things. So we try to keep a very bare bones. On total expenses, you come across, we anticipated 11.3 in expenses. We actually have 10.9, so we're plus 40 or 400,000 in the good. And if you bring that on down to the year end, so at the start of the year in January of 25, I projected a year end balance of 1,006,000. We got all said and done, we ended up at 2,059,000. That is after we transferred 100,000 to rainy day and an extra 250,000 to cover the shortfall in operations from education.
Excellent.
So,
Good.
and then in operations, Again, this number's a little skewed because we have the bond bank investment coming in and the bond bank payment going out. So that's, we're actually looking at actual levy and miscellaneous revenue of 3.6 mil because of the bond bank is 4.8, but you come down to the bottom. We're projected being negative 102. We're actually 71 in the plus, but again, that is after the 250,000 additional revenue going in from the education fund. So overall, a great year. I think you'll see that with some of the things we're doing in 26, this becomes stronger. We're just short of $1 million in rainy day right now. The goal is to get that get up to at least 1.5 mil. 2 would be better. That's going to be a while to get there, but we're making headway. The other thing I would just point out, right now for 26, we did not do an encumbrance. I'm sorry, not an encumbrance. We did not do an appropriation in rainy day. So we have the $1 million. We have no appropriation, so we do not have any authority to spend on a rainy day. So if we have an emergency, we'll come back to the board for additional appropriation. It's different in 26 and was in 25. You do not have to do an advertisement anymore. It's simply board action. So it'll be much faster than what we had to do in the last time, and you won't have to have a special meeting to do it. So.
Yep.
All right, any questions on financials?
Motion to approve. Mr. Orr, second, Mr. Esposito, all in favor. Discussion?
And again, if you,
Pulled a quick one on you, didn't I? I just want to say this before we all raise our hand. Nice work, Tal.
Yeah.
it's a team effort. I just run the numbers, but everybody else is very cognizant
You're leading
of
it, so,
making
yep.
what we need to do. So,
Awesome. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
and then, I don't know if this came, you see my numbers of what's going to happen to us in the next 3 years for, because of Senate Bill 1. So this is an independent piece of information that came across, actually Tony sent it to me. I was looking at about 680,000 shortfall for the next 3 years through Senate Bill 1. The accounting agency that put this together is anticipating we will lose $718,000. So about $38,000 more of a hit than what I was anticipating over 3 years. So, you know, again, the percentage-wise, it's not that off, but it's just, that's a huge hit for us, obviously. So, okay, the next step, if I may continue, is introduce Brock and Hannah. Hannah has been here before. She was in Barnes and Thornburg. Brock is with Baker Tilly, and they are going to do the presentation on the 1028 hearing, which is for the 10-year, $10 million bonding that we are asking the board to consider. So, whoever wants to start.
Thank you, Hannah.
Good evening, everyone. Hannah Clendenning, Barnes and Thornburg. It's good to be back here after a couple years. Before Brock goes into his more detailed presentation about the project, I just want to give a brief overview and reminder of the general process that's about to get started. So this is the very first step in a series of meetings that we'll ask you guys to hold in order to get this project approved. It overall will approve or authorize the issuance of both general obligation bonds and first mortgage bonds, but maybe not all at the same time. First, we're looking at a general obligation bond issuance probably to be issued in May. Before any of that can happen though, so of a project this size, there's first what's called 2 preliminary determination public hearings that have to be held, so this is going to be the first one of those. Nothing needs to be adopted tonight. It's merely just to share information, get any questions from you guys, just have a conversation about it, share it with the public, and offer any, or the opportunity to, to have any comments or questions that they may have as well. Then in February, we'll have the second public hearing. At the close of that public hearing, we would ask the board to consider the adoption of a preliminary determination resolution that will establish the maximum parameters for the bond issuance, which Brock will go into more detail about here in a second. After that, there's a 30-day period where the public can request the petition remonstrance process. After that, then the board would come back in March for another public hearing for the additional appropriation, and then to authorize the general obligation bonds more specifically. And with all of that, the soonest we could close on those and get that money would be May. So that timeline could change, but that's just sort of what we're looking at for the time being. And then with potentially another first mortgage bond issuance later this year. So happy to answer any logistical questions at the outset. Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to Brock and give you more information on the project itself.
Thank you.
Good evening, President Hensley, members of the board. It's nice to be here. This is my first time, but I don't think it's Baker Tilly's first time. So as Dr. Stevens mentioned, I am Brock Bauscher with Baker Tilly. We serve as financial advisor to the school corporation in helping manage debt and looking ahead and setting parameters for the project. I'm going to ask for assistance in the back to run through this presentation, but before I get started, we are statutorily required to provide supplemental financial information. So you have two documents in front of you. You've got the presentation that we're going through and a handout. I'm not going to go through the handout, but we are required to have that available to the public, and stating for the record, it is available to the public. So going into the presentation, the content for this evening, we're going to look at three things. We're going to review your existing debt as it looks tonight. We're going to review the project parameters. You heard Hannah mention that we're establishing maximum parameters as part of this project. So that's what we're doing tonight and what we'll do in February, setting maximum parameters. That doesn't mean this is exactly what the way the debt's going to look. We're just establishing those maximum parameters. Then we'll wrap it up looking at taxpayer impact to finish up the presentation. To get started, the existing debt for Manchester schools, we have 5 securities outstanding. You heard Dr. Stevens mention earlier. So as you look, this is a visual, not necessarily the numbers, but right now we're in fiscal year 2026. We saw our debt peak in 2025, so we have a nice waterfall effect to contemplate debt as early as 2026 to begin our repayment in 2027. As Dr. Stevens has educated you, no pun intended, prior to this, anytime you issue bonds in 1 year, you don't start paying back until the preceding year when you can add your levy and tax rate to begin repaying those bonds. So for all our purposes this evening, we're in calendar year 2026 budget, and we have debt maturing in 2027 and beyond. So that's the way the 5 securities ultimately outstanding until 2036 look as of today. Here are the numbers, the exact same information, just with those who prefer the numbers opposed to the visual, same content. But again, all debt matures as of today by 2036. For purposes of looking into the 2 types of bonds, you heard Hannah mention first mortgage bonds that we may contemplate later on in calendar year 2026. But for this evening, we are illustrating out what it would be to issue what are called general obligation bonds. And general obligation bonds, not to go into too much of the specifics or the technical piece of it, it's just debt issued in the school corporation's name that gives you a little more flexibility on the restructure of the repayment and how the bond proceeds can be used. So for our purposes this evening, we're setting up the maximum parameters illustrated out by GO bonds. In the state of Indiana, you have a maximum capacity of GO bonds, and it's based upon your net assessed value, divide by 3, multiply by 2%. So for us in Manchester schools, a little over $4 million is our max GO capacity. Once you subtract out your existing GO bonds as of today, for Manchester schools, as of January 16th, $2.04 million is our current capacity. That doesn't mean that's all we can issue. That's just how much we can issue as of today based upon our outstanding GO bonds. But as you pay off GO bonds, that you get that capacity back. That's why we targeted $2 million on an ongoing illustration that you'll see in the coming slides. So purposes for setting part 2 of our presentation for the max parameters as part of the project. We are establishing a total maximum par amount over multiple issuances we're planning, a max amount of $10 million. We are looking at a max repayment term of 20 years. That doesn't mean that we're planning on repaying each one of these bonds over 20 years. That's just the maximum term within the state of Indiana. And the reason why we're approaching it this way is to give the school corporation as much flexibility as possible. As you all know, Dr. Stevens and Mr. Castle have educated you well on the nuances that are coming. We're entering an era of uncertainty with SEA 1 and what the impact could be to the school corporation. So we're trying to set you up with as much flexibility going forward with these parameters. That's why we're establishing a maximum repayment of 20 years, but you'll see in the next slide, we don't plan to repay them over 20 years. The total interest expense that we're assuming as part of this total $8.7 million, we're assuming a total max interest rate of 7%. If you were to issue the bonds today, we'd probably get somewhere between 3 to 4%. So again, looking far out, we're trying to give you as much flexibility as possible because we don't know exactly where interest rates are going to be. That doesn't mean you're going to pay 7%. We're just setting a maximum interest rate of 7%. Assuming that interest expense of $8.7 million, our aggregate total debt service would be total repayment of about $18.7 million once you pay back the par plus the interest over that duration.
Over 10 years?
You will look at these examples in the coming slides, but we're setting a maximum repayment term of 20 years. But again, we don't plan to repay these over 20 years. Again, we'll
Sir,
look at that detail.
That's amortized over 20 years, or we have the flexibility to?
We have the flexibility to repay over 20 years, but you'll see what we're assuming is actual repayment for each individual bond just over a couple of years. We're trying to get these paid off as quickly as
Okay.
possible as part of the
Sure.
plan.
Okay.
Good question. Hold that question if you don't mind. So maximum, you see the maximum annual debt service or lease rental payment. That doesn't mean what is increasing compared to 2026, but as our existing debt matures, as part of this $10 million proposed project, our max annual payment within 1 year is $2.5 million, but we're not increasing the payments from where we are currently. Again, we'll look at that in a little more detail in the coming slides. I do want to bring your attention to what the increase would be compared to the 2025 debt service tax rate. That's where you see the 0.0003 cent estimated tax rate impact, again, compared to 2025. The impact compared to what we're seeing and what's been approved in 2026, because you'll see we have a drop when you compare 2025 to 2026. We'd call that a 1-year honeymoon. Then we'll bring you back up in 2027 to where you were in 2025. So that comparison and impact in 2027 is a little over 11 cents compared to what's been approved in 2026. So again, a 1-year honeymoon for taxpayers as you look at specifically the debt service tax rate. Then there's required ratios according to the state of Indiana, which we're required to provide. You see with the percent outstanding of school corporation debt and overlapping units, so that's the city, town, county government, library, township. So looking at the proportion or percentage of debt compared to net assessed value is 5.91%. Comparatively, that's low compared to what we see across the state of Indiana. As typically, we can see that somewhere 8 to 15% on a normal basis. And the projected maximum annual payment as a percent of net assessed value, 0.6%. That is generally much lower than what we see across the state as well, as we typically see that being somewhere from 1 to 3, maybe 4%. So your ratios are low compared to what we see across the state. So this chart represents your existing debt in the green, and what the chart is going forward is what the debt schedule could look like based upon what we know today, or making the assumption that there's no change in net assessed value. So going back to the question of amortized over 20 years, each individual color beginning in 2027 represents a $2 million issuance. and paid back over 2 years is what we're looking at right now, based upon the assumptions today. But things could look different in 2, 3, 4 years, and that's why we're trying to give you as much flexibility as possible with those
Okay.
maximum parameters. But the intent is, unless you tell Mr. Castle and Dr. Stevens something otherwise, we will try to get these bonds paid off as quickly as possible to mitigate that impact to taxpayers and that interest expense over the duration of this proposed $10 million project. That's what it looks like. Again, presuming everything stays equal, what we're assuming today, with keeping some capacity. You heard Hannah mention that you may contemplate a first mortgage bond. So if that comes to fruition, we'll see how we can structure this proposed project with any proposed future need on the capital side. On the next slide, you can see ultimately bringing it to the third part is what does it mean for taxpayers. So you could look at the market value. As this board knows, your market value equals your gross assessed value. That doesn't mean that is the assessed value or taxable value taxpayers are actually paying their property taxes upon, because you're receiving homestead credits, supplemental homestead deductions. So for our purposes this evening, we are going to pull out the average value within Manchester. That's the approximately $153,000 amount. So once you apply the homestead deduction of about $48,000 plus supplemental homestead deduction, the taxable value then calculates out to $61,000. So that average homeowner is paying a taxable assessed value of $61,000. A 0.0003 cent impact from what they were paying in 2025 debt service tax rate. That average taxpayer would be an annual impact of 18 cents. What it means compared to what was approved or what is approved in 2026, that average taxpayer would be impacted by $68. So essentially even with what they were paying in 2025, slight honeymoon in 2026 we're expecting. So based upon these estimates, essentially going back to what they were paying in 2025. I'm not going to go through each and every one, but you can see around what your home value is to see what the correlated impact would be based upon those estimated debt service tax rates. At the bottom are $100,000 of non-homestead residential, so that would be a rental property or ag land. So the rental property and ag land are the 2% bucket, so they're paying no more than 2% of their gross AV per year. So that's why we lump those two together. And you can see for each $100,000 of rental and ag land, an impact compared to 2025 of 26 cents, or compared to what has been approved in 2026 of about $98. The commercial and rental property as well. The 2% bucket will begin receiving a new deduction that they never have before in 2026. That's why the impact is less when you compare commercial and rental, or excuse me, commercial and industrial versus rental and ag land. And historically, those would have been the exact same, but now that is no longer the case. This is step one, and if you have any questions or need additional information, happy to update the presentation for February. Otherwise, appreciate the time and attention.
Thank you. I think this, you know, from the board perspective, it's keeping the tax rate flat, you know, paying off as fast as possible, but leaving flexibility for future board members, so thank you.
You have hard copies?
I think they were shared electronically, but
Okay.
We can print them. It's
Yeah,
in
it's
the
in the-
packet if you don't have access to print them.
And we, you know, if we need to, we can have a working or executive session to kind of cover this together. So
We
now that
need
we've
to do
got details, so. Thank
any
you, sir.
questions? Thank you.
Anything else? Yeah. That's kind of a good feeling, isn't it?
Yeah,
Okay.
it really is.
Thank you, folks. Great job, appreciate it. One last thing on my side, transfer resolution. So you had a special meeting to do an additional appropriation. That was simply allowing us to spend money that we had already received. So when you do your budget, the budget actually says, here is what your appropriation is. It doesn't necessarily match your income or your revenue. It is simply, here's a number. So we have to wait until December to figure out where we're at financially. So additional appropriation was simply to cover the dollars that we had already in the bank that we didn't have your authority to spend. So with that additional resolution or additional appropriation, we now have the dollars to spend. After then we do the December closeout of the year, we have monies that we adjusted in 18, 16, 14 months ago when we built the budget that said, okay, Tony had a great example. So we put in our budget $100 to buy pencils and erasers, and we put $50 in to buy crayons. Well, we bought $75 worth of pencils and $75 of crayons. The accounts don't match because we're $50 off.
Safe travels, Anna.
So what the transfer resolution does is simply says we're aligning all the numbers so that we have enough revenue in the line to pay for the expenses in that line. So it's not additional money, it's simply allowing us to transfer the money to the appropriate lines that we need the funds in and taking it out of the lines that we overestimated we needed revenue. So cash or the transfer resolutions, we have two. One is for the education fund and one is for the operation fund. Those are in your packet. I'll be happy to answer any questions, but I do need a motion to accept the transfer resolutions. And these are to the dollar. So that's why we wait until January so we can actually balance the books. And that is from our CompuTrol system or voice system that says this is exactly what we need to transfer.
Do we have a hard copy of that to sign or no?
Yes, I think. I have it somewhere.
It's not in here.
Let me see it.
Wait, is it under here?
Yeah, it's about 40 pages.
40?
40 on one and 20 on the other.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's on the last page. And
Yeah, I've looked at it on the computer, but we usually sign this going down, so.
Yep, I'll get it printed for you.
Motion to approve. Mr. Raymer, second. Mr. Penrod, any discussion? I think when you do resolutions, we need Dietrich's cookies.
There are some in the back room, by the way. So.
Really?
Go ahead, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Safe travels.
No questions.
Consent items. Claims,
I'll have no questions.
minutes, resignations.
We had no resignations
Good.
for this month. We had no grants
Grants.
for this month.
And then donations.
Donations.
Mr. Bias.
Okay, we have $50 to the MJSH FFA program by an anonymous donor, $1,579.23 to Manchester Junior Senior High School's boys basketball program for purchase of junior Squires jerseys by McKee Mortuary, $378 to the Manchester Junior Senior High School for bench made from bottle caps from Mrs. Mize's class in memory of Preston Duffy. This bench will be placed in the foyer going to the gym and the pack
That's
by, huh?
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome. By Elsie Duffy French. $1,000 to the Manchester Junior Senior High drama program by an anonymous donor. Another $1,000 to the Manchester Junior Senior High program, choir program from an anonymous donor. Another $1,000 to the band program by an anonymous donor, and another $1,000 to the Science Olympiad program by an anonymous donor. $20,000 to Manchester Community Schools Dual Language Immersion Program by an anonymous fund administered by the Community Foundation of Wabash County. $500 to the Manchester Junior Senior High School Cross Country Program by an anonymous donor, and $500 to the Manchester Junior Senior High School AP Bio Florida trip by an anonymous donor, totaling $27,007.23. Thank you.
Thank you, community.
Do that so well.
Any facility rentals?
There's a facility rental request for the club volleyball. We've had this in the past. January to May on Sundays from 1 to 3:30 in the gymnasium. And they will not charge admission fees. So it's just to get kids interested in moving and playing volleyball. And they operate that on Sunday afternoons, 1 to 3:30.
Cool. Motion to approve consent items. Mr. Orr, a second. Mrs. Tobias, any discussion? Consent items, facility rentals, anything? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
6-0, Randy. Employment.
Employment, we have Casey Penrod, MIS sixth grade girls basketball coach. Annie Weitzel, MIS sixth grade girls basketball coach volunteer. Blake Knudsen, PE health teacher, semester 2 only. Erica Yard at the junior senior high guidance secretary, and that's an internal transfer. Daphne Steele, MIS custodian. Tim Bartley, junior senior high esports season 1 and 2 assistant. And Russ Rehard, MCS bus driver.
Awesome. Motion to approve employment.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Penrod, second. Mr. Raymer, any discussion? Welcome aboard. All in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Yeah, Manchester Youth Wrestling.
Youth wrestling, January 13th through the 26th. No cost to participate. Students need wrestling shoes and headgear. Run by Coach Matt Burlingame. For elementary kids, grades K through 5. Tuesdays and Thursday evenings, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. starting today, January 13th, and ending on Thursday, February 26th. And obviously, just learn about fitness, wrestling, hard work, discipline.
Excellent sport, if I may say so myself. Thank you. Motion to approve. Mr. Raymer, second. Mr.
Whoever.
Mr. Esposito. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah. Now, you guys didn't want to take on our sectional champ. Anybody want to take on the kids? You better be careful, they're pretty tough.
I'm sure they are.
Approval of winter cheerleading kitty camp.
Yep, winter cheerleading kitty camp, day camp would be on Saturday, February 7th, with performance at halftime, which is, if you've never seen it, it's a blast. All those little kids get out there and do their cheers. It'll be on Tuesday the 10th. It costs us $40. Varsity game performance, February 10th. Participants get in for free to that game. Just an opportunity, again, to learn some cheers, learn a dance routine, learn some jumps, to get to perform in front of a big crowd, home crowd, and build some excitement around the cheer program.
Awesome. Motion to approve. Mr. Penrod, second. Mr. Orr, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Okay, good work, Tony. Department update.
Well, two major items on the agenda. We are in the process, or we have applied for a Don Wood Foundation Career Readiness Grant. We've applied, or indicated our intent to apply, I should say. And I believe our system, Tony, is looking at that too, so it may be a number of school systems in the county that are going to go together and do this. So could be some really good stuff. That's in the works. The other thing is we've been working with this ABC construction company. We're looking at taking a storage area on the property and converting it into classrooms for the students and doing some other construction work around there. So
Creative expansion, huh?
well, we'd be buying materials. The students would be doing a lot of the
Yeah.
work. So I think it would be a great opportunity. So a lot of good things happening down there.
Yeah. Don Wood, I got to spend some time with him when I first started Besiege, right, working in the business and in the room. And what that guy, to leave all that money for the you guys, the Don Wood Foundation, you're familiar with it, you know.
Did he
just-
wear his red suspenders?
Yeah,
when he
just an
met?
extraordinary
Good. Yep.
individual, so just kudos to him. We know
Yeah.
you're up there, right?
Yeah, a
So,
lot of good stuff.
Yeah, awesome. Legislative update?
There's some action down there at the House, not like last year, so it'll be a shorter session. Kind of look through it. There's a lot less bills than what there was last year, so it'll be
good.
easier to digest as they kind of shake out. I think a lot of it will be kind of narrowed down by the end of February, so kind of keep those watching. I pulled 4 out just kind of briefly to toss out there to kind of keep you in the loop. There's Senate Bill 78, talks about wireless communication device policies, looking at further restricting use of cell phones and smartwatches at schools. So I don't know how that compares to what we already have now, but they're looking to almost eliminate it off the property and not even have the kids bring that there. So I'm sure there'll be some pushback on that. This was an interesting one on House Bill 1059, allowing commercial advertisements on school buses. So as additional revenue for if you want to, hey, slap your Siege logo on there for a certain amount. So it's another revenue stream. So I don't know, that'd be different than seeing a yellow school bus going down the road, but they may allow
Capitalism, yeah.
there you go. This was one, Senate Bill 77, talks about sale of school buildings. Currently, if a school corporation did not have a need for a school building, then they'd have to offer it for lease or purchase by a charter school for $1. This would kind of put a different caveat. It would allow 1 year for the school to sell the building to the county or municipal government before allowing their charter school to come in. So kind of an intermediate step that could happen before a charter school could have that. And then the last one, House Bill 1137, they're going after the tasty foods, ultra-processed foods and beverages. So they're looking at trying to prohibit serving, selling, or allowing a third party to serve and sell ultra-processed foods. It had a lot of details about the different dyes and sugars and everything, what they're not wanting to allow schools to serve to the students. But it said after school, 30 minutes after school's over, then you can sell it, but for fundraising and school events. But during school, the school can't serve that. Doesn't mean the parents can't send it with their kid, but they're kind of putting some restrictions on some health things. So just a couple foods for thought.
Any comments on any of that? You know, our nutritionists already, I mean, they go by guidelines, right, that are pretty, I mean, that's what my wife did before she passed away, so it looks like we're getting into a little behavioral, right? I guess attendance was behavioral, but. Yeah. All right. Superintendent comments?
Yes, just a couple of things. Tomorrow, I believe it's at 9 a.m., is the final hearing for the new school accountability model. It was supposed to originally come out before now, but it got delayed. All the principals and the counselors and I watched a webinar on our first day back from Christmas break with what we think the model's going to be. I think it'll be something very close, but that hearing is tomorrow, and then that'll help us understand kind of what they're looking at. The bottom line is, and Mr. Baker, who does these presentations, has done them all over the state, retired superintendent, as he says, if you do what's best for kids, the rest takes care of itself. So if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and we're being effective teachers and effective stewards with our kids and what we're providing for them, the rest will take care of itself. But I will be listening to that live stream and then waiting for that model to be released. In February, and I'll probably bring this up again in the February board meeting, but in February I will be attending the National Superintendent Conference in Nashville, Tennessee. Just a great opportunity to get together with 5,000 superintendents from all over the United States and listen to what's trending in education. Certainly, education seems to be in a very big flex mode right now of a lot of changes legislatively in all states. Also, just to piggyback on Mr. Orr's comment regarding the Don Wood Foundation grant, we've had several Zoom meetings that included people from Community Foundation, Heartland, all the superintendents or principals, some of the principals from all 3 school districts in Wabash County. The initial phase would be to send a letter of intent to apply. It's a planning grant for $150,000 if you're awarded that grant, to then plan for submitting for the $1 million grant. The focus that the Don Wood Foundation is looking for is a focus on advanced manufacturing, but they also added 2 areas of leadership and entrepreneurship. So we're looking at that. There are some schools that are considering doing it individually and collectively to benefit across the county. We will see. I mean, that has to be the focus if you're interested in that grant. We'll see where that heads. Right now, there is a draft letter out that we are reviewing, and then we would make a determination from there. Other than that, good start to second semester. 2 weeks in now, I think. Weather, knock on wood, weather's been cooperative. Been kind of weird, but it's been cooperative. But we've seen our share of illnesses kind of still out there floating around, but floating through the schools right at the end of Christmas break and leading into the beginning of this year. New maintenance director is on site now. Randy's been taking time to show him around all the buildings and the things that Randy knows, related to the building, and he's already diving in. Dr. Stevens has been working with our system, Limble. It's called Limble. I know Casey asked about this, I think, at the 29th meeting, but it really is a maintenance management system to be able to do a lot of things, track your assets, track preventative maintenance or preventative maintenance schedules, allows for individuals to submit work requests, and then those get sent out to what they call super users, which are all the administrators, Dr. Stevens, myself, Mr. Self. So getting that program rolling. So we're excited about that. We have a couple of maternity leaves coming up. Working on our school nurse will be taking maternity leave. We have one school covered, working on getting other schools covered, and she's helping us with that process. Have another maternity leave that'll be coming up for a treasurer at MES. So we're working on getting that taken care of. And with the teaching departure of Mr. Lepper, we did get that position filled temporarily for now. We're waiting to weigh out how PE is impacted with the new graduation requirements. But the young man that came to us, outstanding, has a strong background in strength and weight training, which we are adding to our curriculum next year. So it's needed for our sports and our student athletes. And kids have had a very positive response in the first 2 weeks to him. Yeah. Very positive response. They all say, he knows what he's talking about. So we're excited to have him on board. You guys finalized him tonight.
Are you going to wrestle him?
No. Again.
Mike, were you a wrestler?
And I'll say this,
I
know
think you need to
people
wrestle
out there
people.
listening, and I'll say this, you don't want to see me cry and tap out. So,
Who says?
that's true, you might want to. Other than that, that's where we're at. Jeff, Dr. Stevens and I have been spending a lot of time just looking at, finances moving forward, looking at the bond situation, looking at how, he is, and I appreciate that, Mr. Hensley, that you recognize him. He's done an outstanding job, and he's helped us all. We are a team, and he runs everything by us, and we discuss and look at it, and we're heading in the right direction, and starting the 1028 hearing tonight really will help position us down the road with the losses that we're anticipating from SEA 1 to, I think, stabilize our tax rate and put us financially in a much more stable position, considering we're looking at a $700,000 loss over the next couple of years. So I too appreciate his work and the work of Shelley and Darla and everybody involved that has a hand on that. Those are my comments for tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Castle, board comments? Mr. Orr. Good.
Really brief. Saturday's edition of the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. If I can flip it over here, we have a record number in the state of Indiana of diplomas in 2025.
Yep.
Did you see that, Tony?
Yep.
Let me turn
I
the
did.
page here.
Wanna peel the
And they
onion?
gave a rundown of the schools, and lo and behold, Manchester Community Schools is in here. 97.3% graduation rate. Brady, stand up and take a bow.
You want to come up and talk about that?
You want to talk about that? But let's go back to 2023, 88.5%. 2024, 93.9%, and the 97.3%. Now, statistically, we know it's kind of hard to move the needle when you have 100 students to do much better than that. But the community should really be proud of this, and this just doesn't happen by chance. It happens because a lot of people care. It happens because we encourage young people at our church, or our family members, or students of our young people of our friends and in the community and in the schools. So I think there's just a lot to be proud of, and a lot of good
I
stuff.
believe in this, I don't know if it was in the same paper, but it was recently in the Journal-Gazette. There's a very nice interview article with Dr. Young from Manchester University discussing their 3-year bachelor program and physical, I can't remember.
Come on, Rick.
What is it?
Come on, Rick.
Physical therapy.
Come on, Rick.
Physical therapy and something else with health,
She's
I
going to
think.
get you tomorrow.
But a very good article. They were the first in the state of Indiana to streamline this program. It's 90 credits, and you still get your bachelor degree. And so exciting to see a local university doing innovative things, for students. And
PT.
so,
There you go.
Yeah, Fred, was that record number of successful graduates? Is that what you
For
said?
the state.
Well, you took statistics, didn't you? Somewhere along the line.
Well, you started with record number of
So it
diplomas.
says just record number of diplomas.
Oh, okay.
Now, what those diplomas are,
just not society.
Why
you know,
just like it's not a higher number of graduates, it's likely just a higher percentage.
higher
of
percentage
success.
of graduates.
Success.
Yeah, and I think that translates throughout the whole county.
Yeah.
But that's a good thing. That's a good thing. We just that's what we're about, the kids, and making sure we get the best education for them and give them a good start in life.
So you're a Heartland rep, right?
I am.
So when you peel the onion on graduation, how do you think that increase has happened? I think a large part is CTE pathways, right? Where we've given some
Different
people
Some
some
alternatives,
opportunity,
sure.
right? And
Yeah.
some alternatives, choice, basically for the students, if you want to use the word, but I think, and I
Sure.
think you got to be a little careful about that as well. When migration of students happens like that, whether they pass or not, we better make sure they know the fundamentals of what we're supposed to be teaching them. And
Right.
and I'm gonna tell you, like, to me, we're still missing fundamentals. Problem solving is numero uno, just, and I don't wanna say mental, but just some element of life coaching, right, is substantial, I think, to kids, Again, most of these, I won't say most, but a lot of these kids only have one parent. So,
Right.
I'm
Makes a big
looking
difference.
down the road with, you guys all have a spouse, right? I experienced raising kids by myself, right? Not ever by myself. You got God and your family around here, but there's, you always want to peel the onion when I see increases like that, what's going on is the question on that.
And I think, Brady, are we taking a close look at that and why we're doing so well? How we can improve?
The graduation rate, I think it's a collection of a lot of that. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess to me, it's kind of like you guys said earlier. You want to be very, very 30,000-foot view. I mean, we got a collection of people in this district whose collective end game is that we want to get these kids a diploma. I mean, it starts with your kindergarten teachers. I mean, all the way
Right on through.
There's some logistical things. We have credit recovery now that we didn't have when I was in school. You fail a class, you're either taking summer school back in person.
Right.
We have some flexibility
Right.
there. We worked with Randy over the summer. We had some coding we needed to clean up in the state system. You know, I think that kind of helped as well. I don't know if I can pinpoint one thing. I think it's a collection of a lot of small things, but overall, we got a lot of people in there who they want to see the kids walk. And I'll tell you guys a story, that 97%, we got about 100 kids per class, so
Right.
kids didn't graduate. One of those 3 graduated a week ago. And,
Awesome.
From
you know,
2025.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
know,
you stuck with that
he
student.
stuck with it.
That's
And-
right.
And you know, it'd be nice if he graduated last school year, but I'm a firm believer, like in his case, it's not necessarily when you graduate, it's that you graduate. And
Yeah.
he stuck with it. You know, he and I have had some heart-to-hearts in the last year. And I tell you what, just seeing the staff when they found out that he got his diploma, you get to see they're just so proud of him, and he gets to walk this May.
Great.
So
Awesome.
we'll award him
That's
a
awesome.
diploma, and, you know, so even, you know, the 97% is great, but even a story like that is just as
Sure.
good.
Good.
So, no, we're very proud. I don't know, I could sit down and probably make a list for it off the top of my head. I mean, it starts with the good people we got in all 3 buildings, it really does.
Yeah,
Right.
awesome. Yeah, good.
Absolutely.
I did have one question. Was Manchester University part of that conversation? With Sherwood?
It's all just one.
It's just one.
They are not, because it's a.
Oh, that's what you're, why
It's
didn't
a
you
planning
just
grant,
smack
we're
me and
planning
say,
for the high
"Fred,
school,
come on,
it's a
man."
planning grant for the high school students. Because we asked, well, I should say, the Community Foundation had a meeting with the daughter, I believe it was, to see if we could extend this down into lower grades, and they're really focusing on 9-12 right now.
Okay. Well, the reason I asked that, so one of the other elements that advanced manufacturing, entrepreneurship, one of the other elements, the guy was a sales guy, right? And I think one of the other elements that he really wanted through the foundation was some type of sales component. And so I thought maybe it'd be, you know, Manchester Community Schools and Manchester University that could maybe put something together and offer that to Don Wood, you know, versus kind of the other way. So just keep that in mind a little bit. Joe Messer had a class. I did a little, we're gonna train him as green belts, but I got about 4 days with them, and those were some sharp individuals right in that sales class. So, you know, they've got a sales degree over there. It'd be neat to see some of our kids get involved in that and then elevate over to the university, kind of keep them in town, if you will. So, yep, other than that, anything else? Motion to, Casey? No, okay, motion to adjourn? Mr. Penrod, second, Mr. Esposito, all in favor?